it going, internet? Got this patch here. Let's just turn it down a little bit. So it looks a bit extensive, but it's actually relatively simple in the sense that it's only 5 tracks, 3 of which are the drums. So why don't we just take a listen and take a look at some of these elements. So I've got this kick drum here. Might just mute it for a second. So the kick drum is this little unit here. It's a drum voice, but I created it from scratch. So I've got this VCO as the basis for it. And I've got 3 envelopes, one for pitch, one for amplitude, and one for the amplitude of the noise. And the noise I have here as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple voice. I've also got a wave folder on it and just a simple filter with quite a bit of drive on it on the output. And that gives us this sound. There's a bit of reverb on it as well at the mixer stage. I'm using a Euclidean sequencer to get this rhythm, which is a bit silly really because it's a completely straight rhythm, so it might have made more sense just to use a gate sequencer. But I didn't start out with a straight rhythm, I just ended up with a straight rhythm, and you know, it's fine. It still works, it still does what I wanted it to do. Yeah, I really like making drums from scratch. You just get a lot of tonal variety, there's lots of sweet spots, lots of things to toy with to get the sound you want. I just think it's cool. Similarly, down here I have another drum voice. Let's listen to that. So it's very similar in construction. I just use primarily volt modules for this one. 3 instances of slap, because it's also a VCA, which is handy. VCA and envelope in one. I'm still using the VCO from Bog Audio, because I just thought it sounded better than the Volt VCO that I was using before this. And yeah, it's a similar setup. You know, you've got a pitch envelope, amplitude envelope for the noise and for the output of the VCO. And then that's all just going into a filter with lots of drive, and then it's going into debritus as well. And then finally it's going into another filter just to sort of tame or to shape the output of debritus, but it's also for modulation. I'm modulating this filter. And in fact, I'm modulating a lot of things with this voice, courtesy of this S&H 8, or Sample and Hold 8, from Mokba. Not exactly sure if that's how you pronounce that. Isn't Mokba Moscow in Russian? I'm not exactly sure. I'm not an expert on these things. I've got the expander here as well, which gives us some slew. I've actually not really used this setup before, but I do love sample and hold. I love having this many of them. I usually use brains from geodesics for this kind of stuff, but this fulfilled the need perfectly, and it's kind of exactly what I wanted. It's just lots of sample and holds going into a whole series of slews. So we end up with some smoothed off sample and hold. But this is like a modulated voice. It's very kind of glitchy. It's an unusual rhythm, which if we bring it in with the kick, kind of Autechre vibes, but like if Autechre made techno, which they don't really. And then finally down the bottom here, I have this noise hi-hats basically. I'm using this Bukovac. Again, not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Sanguine. This seems a lot like Noise Plethora from Bufako, to the point where, let's just bring it up, to the point where when you hover over it, it says a noise generator with a plethora of colors and purlin. So I assume that they know. I assume that they know that it's basically trying to be a bit of a noise plethora. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar. I always say noise plethora. It's more plethora, isn't it? But whatever. Let's unmute this so we can hear what it sounds like. So a bit of modulation going on this, and I have two noise voices going into two VCAs with two attack decays, and I'm modulating both the decays on them. And it's going to a phaser. That's basically it. It's got a bit of reverb on it as well. I'm using the violet noise output and the prism noise output. I just really like the way this sounds. It's another irregular rhythm, but with that 4 to the floor kick drum, it just keeps it straight, you know? And then I've got this big setup up the top, which we should look at now. Let's just mute everything and just bring that in. So I'm using a Euclidean sequencer again, just using the one from Count Modular throughout this patch. I really love Count Modular. I feel like they're like the unsung hero of VCV, along with Bog Audio, really. They're just, you know, consistently amazing, rock solid modules that have so many uses. Using this 16-step sequencer as well. It's going into Mother here, which is a really great quantizer. Has a lot of scales in it, which is part of the reason I chose it in this patch. I'm also using Fence, so I can lock in or attenuate the range. You can change the range on the sequencer, but you know, sometimes it's nice to use an external module, especially because you can modulate this one. I'm not modulating it here, but we'll get to that later. And I wanted to use switches. So I quite often use switches like 8 to 1 versus 1 to 8, so multiple inputs going to one output. In this case, it's one input going to multiple outputs. I'm using another one down here for the triggers, but they're basically, it's one sequence going into these 4 modules here. I'm using another SNH8 to do some modulation, and they're all going into this mixer in the middle. I'm using these modules from Sanguine. There's 2 instances of a macro oscillator, 2 different varieties of the macro oscillator, and then 2 instances of a nully, which is just rings. And that's basically it. But I'm doing a lot of modulation, and you just end up with this really nice kind of glitchy, melodic tones. Let's just listen to each individual. That's this one. So that's nice, and then I've got this one over here. Vowel oscillator. And then another rings. I just love physical modeling. I'm sort of obsessed with it in a way. It's just, I just love how organic it sounds. And then over here, what is this? Peak filtered waveform model. It's pretty cool. So let's just unmute all of these again. I just love that sound. I just think it's really cool. I'm using brains over here to do something a little bit interesting. I'm gating it with the sequencer, but then I'm using the output of the sample and hold to modulate the length, the hits and the shift, which you can see on this little scope here, or these lights, I should say. I think that's interesting because you end up with a sort of like a feedback loop in a way. I like having feedback loops in VCV. I feel like it's a bit naughty, like it's almost like you're not meant to, but it works, so whatever. And then I have this one more voice, which is just down here. This little section here. I've got another switch, which I am doing some slightly weird stuff with. I'm basically, the output is going into the fence, the upper range of it, so it's modulating it, but it's only got 2 inputs and it's on random. So every so often it will increase the range of fence. And so it's not just, it sort of, adds variation to the sequence. I've just got a 5-step sequence with ADDR sequencer going into mother. And then I've also got this Euclidean sequencer from Sanguine, the Sphinx. And it's a very sparse sequence. It's got 1 step, but then on 11 length, so it's quite irregular compared to the straight kick drum. I really love this pizza module. It's an FM module. There are other modules that are also FM. I don't know what it is about this one. It just sounds really punchy and lovely. I just really like it. I'm going into slap again. I'm using this module from 4MS, which is a gate modifier. I usually use the one from Count Modular. I didn't even know this one existed, but I want a simple small module that will increase the length of a gate, and this does that. Whereas the Count Modular one, even though it's extremely functional, it's quite large. So sometimes you just want a smaller module. If I bring in the kick drum, I think that the bass kind of interacts with the kick drum quite nicely. And similarly, I think it interacts with this quite nicely. And yeah, that's pretty much the patch. I just really like this patch. I just like it. I know I say that all the time, but it's a good patch. I had a lot of fun making it. I just love these kinds of sounds, That's probably going to do it. It's a short video this week. I'm pretty busy, and yeah, this patch just took me a while to make as well. I'd love to know what you think about it. Let me know. And yeah, let me know anything else that you feel like commenting on. If you have any ideas for me for future videos, please let me know also. Always open to suggestion. I think that's going to do it though. And I'll see you next week. And I'll just let this play out. Okay. See you later.